watching the Isaiah Factor Uncensored.
In 2006, 14-year-old Shaquanda Cotton was sentenced to 7 years in juvenile prison. Her crime? Pushing a hall monitor. Tonight, we discuss unfair sentencing. Take a look.
Our guests are here to talk about unfair sentencing when it comes to African Americans and minority. Shaquanda Cotton, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your story, your sentencing, and what happened.
Well, in my case, I was arrested for assault on a public servant, but it wasn't even, I didn't commit a crime, but I was more so a target of my mom being an activist and doing activist work in the schools.
So what were you accused of doing that got you into trouble?
Pushing a hall monitor.
You were accused of pushing a hall monitor?
Yes, sir.
And what kind of time did they sentence you for that, and what was your age at the time?
I was 14 years old, and I was sentenced up to 7 years.
7 years. Now, was that in juvie?
Yeah.
So when you realize you pushed a hall monitor, and then they sentenced you to 7 years in juvenile lockup, what was going through your mind, and what goes through your mind now?
For the most part, I just kept replaying the situation, especially on my trial date, of how I was expecting the adults to go to court and tell the truth because I felt like they had to, because I was a child at the time. And it went a total opposite direction. Nobody told the truth, and ultimately I was sentenced. And as a matter of fact, my whole trial, it wasn't really even about me. They kept bringing up my mom and her friend Brenda Cherry, who does activist work with her. The trial was more about them, so I kind of felt then that the system had failed me.
And of course, you had a comparison to a white female student or a white student who got into trouble but had a criminal record. You didn't have a criminal record. Their alleged crime was more severe. And what were they sentenced to?
She was offered probation. I believe she had an arson case, and she did have a previous record. Like you said, I didn't, but they used my school write-ups as a background for me in court.
And Dominique Leonard, let's bring you into this conversation. You were convicted of robbing a bank with a note. And what was your sentence?
My sentence was life, L-I-F-E, life.
And you had someone in prison with you who also robbed a bank with a gun and also robbed a CVS with a gun. And they were white. And what was their sentence?
Yeah, as I got to TDC, I ended up befriending a guy. And, actually, when you go to prison, you talk about your time because everybody want to make sure you're not in there for, I guess, other kind of crimes. And so when I got to prison, me and this guy became pretty cool. And his sentence for robbing a CVS and also for robbing a bank with a gun was an 18-year sentence. 18 years.
And what did you think about that, Dominique? You get life in prison with a note, and this guy gets 18 years for robbing two institutions with a gun.
Yeah, well, actually, when I heard that, two things happened went through my mind. I already knew it was injustice that went on. The second thing I knew was the color of my skin, because here is a white guy who robs a bank and robs a CVS, and he said, well, man, I was on drugs. Well, see, I wasn't on drugs, and he was on drugs. So his reason was, hey, I was on drugs. I wanted more drugs, and also to help my family. But he used a weapon, though, and he gets 18 years. So I strongly believe that everybody's color of skin matters when it comes to court.
And is that true? Is that accurate, Oliver Brown? As an attorney and an officer of the court, have you seen situations like this?
Yes, unfortunately, it happens all the time. Justice is supposed to be blind and delivered accordingly. But the truth of the matter is, even in the federal system, there's strict guidelines. Every time there's a chance for a downward departure on a sentence, the African American and Mexican American or brown people, they end up with a more harsher punishment. You know, I hear the lady here talking about how she was just in juvenile. You know, that had to be the most disturbing miscarriage of justice. You're talking about a child that's at school, maybe there's a little fight and a tussle, and you hit a public servant on accident, or maybe even intentionally because you're young and you're out of control. Sending someone to TYC is the most egregious miscarriage of justice ever, okay? And it's not just juvenile hall where you sit around in camp. It's real prison for these children, okay? And then when you hear that people commit worse crimes and then get lesser sentences, I've actually seen it in the courtroom. When I was a law clerk, a white man was in there, 18 different armed robberies, et cetera. They put him on probation. Our guy was in there for some drug stuff. He ends up with 18 months. And so you see this wide disparity, and it happens all the time. Justice is supposed to be blind with the lady with the blindfold, but realistically, she has one side of that blindfold down to make sure she's sentencing people according to their race.
What can be done about this, Oliver, if anything?
Honestly, I've lost a lot of hope in legislating racism out of people. It's only going to come with the change of people and their life experiences so that they can see Black and brown people as humans, understanding that all races of people make mistakes, okay? But when they make a mistake, you got to look past the race and look at the full totality of everything. Hearing the young lady talk about how her mother was an activist and stuff, I guarantee you 100% that played into the judge's decision. And there's always these backdoor conversations that go on. So let's not pretend as if she got fair justice for pushing a hall monitor. It's ridiculous.
Now take a look at this. Shaquanda has wrote a book. It's Memoirs of a Teacher Slapping B-Word. Fill it in. It's available online, so go check it out and hear her full story. For more information on Dominique Leonard, visit his website at justfree.com without the T, justfree.com. We'll be